This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
A report by Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited has called attention to the high numbers of security-related incidents in the conflict-hit Northeast and Northwest. The report, titled October 2024 Nigeria Security Report, draws attention to the number of failings within the current security apparatus and makes a few suggestions to address the problem. Joining us to discuss the report this morning is Jesse Atta, a Risk Operations and Intelligence Coordinator at Beacon Consulting. Mr. Atta, good morning and thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here this morning.
Can you speak to us about this report? It's for the month of October, and part of what we are seeing is the kidnapping of over 1,000 Nigerians during the period. Can you give us a general overview of the circumstances around these numbers?
Well, thank you again for having me here this morning. Our report in October clearly highlighted the complex political and economic challenges that have continued to impact the country, particularly with issues of insecurity bulging around the activities of non-state armed groups, criminal gangs, cult groups, etc. Our report clearly shows a spread at the granular level of these insecurity issues, most of which dominated the northwestern region of the country in states such as Zamfara, Katsina, and Sokoto. And these states largely were impacted by issues of banditry. For instance, over 83% of abductions that were recorded in October occurred within these states of mention, the three states, Zamfara, Katsina, and Sokoto. And in terms of the fatality spread as well, we saw a lot of that across the northern regions in comparison to what we saw in the southern parts of the country. And this kind of just shows us the entrenched level of insecurity that continues to impact that region of the country.
So, Mr. Atta, if we dig into this a little more, there are some states where we've started to record some significant kidnapping activity, including deaths as well down south. Can you speak to us about the security trends that we should be paying attention to in the southern part of the country?
Yeah, well, in the southern part of the country, we continue to see a mix of ethnic militia concerns, armed secessionism, and other organized criminal groups still operating. And typically, as Nigerians, we kind of pay keen attention during this period of the year, which is typically referred to as the Ember Month, right? And with the Ember Month, we have a heightened level of fear and concern as criminal groups tend to exploit this particular period due to the large scale of travel and movement across parts of the country, goods and persons moving from north to south and vice versa. In the southwest, for example, particularly, which is of notable attention, is the issue of the armed secessionism. So far, we've seen various rhetorics on social media and through various propaganda outlets pushing for calls of secession, of full secession by December. These calls for secession have been repeated over the past years, without any noteworthy outcome. And of course, we are all familiar with the economic and operational disruption that these particular threat concerns have really, how it has impacted the southeast region, especially on Mondays, disrupting operational activities. And so far we've heard pockets of rumors of extended sitting orders that are most likely to be seen sometime towards the end of this month into into December.
So let me, I mean, a quick overview of your report, right, shows that kidnappings, and I'm still focusing on the South, so kidnappings were on the decrease, right, except in places like Delta, Enugu, Abia. But when I look at the map you have for fatalities, there are more fatalities. There was an increase of fatalities in more states across the South. So places like Oyo, Lagos, Ondo, Enugu, Ebonyi, Imo, Abia, and I'm seeing Bayelsa, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom. What exactly, what's the nature of these killings? Are we talking about the security challenges you've mentioned around secessionist agitation and whatnot, or is this urban crime and other matters unfolding?
Yeah, so of course we understand that across various regions and even states within those regions, there are different dynamics that shape crime. And like you've rightly mentioned, in terms of the fatalities, you have more concerns in, say, urban crime in places like Lagos and Oyo State, in comparison to what you see somewhere in Anambra or Imo or Abia State, for example. And Lagos is notable for operational risk, and this largely looks at road traffic accidents and sometimes just gang violence as well. What we've seen in the Southwest particularly, things like sustained violent clashes by cult groups, typically bordering around the Aye, Eye, Pirate, and Buccaneer groups. We've seen pockets of abduction attacks and criminalities that have to do with burglary and stuff like that, and also homicide, right? With, of course, the usual civil unrest issues that we continue to face from time to time. Like earlier, I had mentioned the hazards, and hazards have largely been the road and fire accidents that we've continued to see across other parts of the country as well. In the Southeast region, like I had mentioned, but just to reiterate, the issue of armed secessionism contributes to a greater degree of fatalities. And this is not just limited to armed secessionism. We understand that the impact of armed secessionism has created room for other criminal actors to operate under the guise of the whole secessionism cause and carry-on cause. So you have more criminals operating than even the actual secessionist group. However, you have people perpetrating these crimes under the guise of, enforcing sit-at-home orders in order to perpetrate crimes and all.
So let's, as we head towards the end of this conversation, let's talk about security operatives. What has been the response during that period? If you could touch on the Southeast, since that's where we are at the moment, and then head towards the Southwest and then the Northeast.
All right. So interestingly, there's been very key coordinated operations being carried out against armed groups across the country, from north to south. So let's start with the Southeast, like you mentioned. We've seen increased military operations in dealing with the armed secessionist group linked with IPOB. One of those operations has been at the auspice of Operation Undoka, and this has largely been aimed at dismantling its armed militia wing, the Eastern Security Network. However, these operations have continued to face criticisms from local population in terms, and this has largely had to do with the difference between government effort, translating government effort into real results without the issues of concern of increased security checkpoints and allegations of disproportional force against civilians. So that has largely been seen in the Southeast. Across other parts of the South, we've seen various anti-cult security arrangements being put in place. However, there's still pockets of decreased security visibility that continue to allow for, perpetration of some of these crimes. During the month as well, we saw overall security collaboration really coordinated by the Ministry of Defense, the NSA. We saw acquisition of more weapons and aerial surveillance equipment in collaboration with other foreign partners like Portugal for UAV and in supporting surveillance across the country. All of these operations, I did mention the North, the Operation Handokai, the Operation Hadarin Jaji, Will Punch, and so on and so forth, that have still been in place in order to checkmate criminal threat actors. We saw a notable increase in Sokoto State, for example, in terms of responding to the Lakurawa group, as well as the existing issue of banditry that has largely shaped the threat landscape in the northwest part of the country. But overall, we continue to see that increased push for security hardening measures in dealing with various threat concerns, just emanating from the various parts of the country, and including the Gulf of Guinea, where we saw checks on illegal arms smuggling.
Right.
I think some initiatives that were initiated by the Small Arms and Light Weapons Center, the National Center for Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons.
Right. Well, Mr. Attah, thank you very much for your time and your expertise on this conversation. Jesse Attah is a risk operations and intelligence coordinator at Beacon Consulting. He joined us to discuss the security agency's October 2024 security report, which focuses on conflicts across Nigeria, the numbers involved, as well as the responses of security agents. You're still on to Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. In a few short moments, we turn to Nigeria's foreign policy in our next conversation. Do stay with us.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.